Welcome, all of you fellow Arcanists out there, to the Frith Guild podcast, where we explore the amazing world full of mystical creatures and their partners. My name is Eric, and I'll be your guide along this journey through pirate-infested waters. So you better strap on your swords and get ready to defend the seas from evildoers. I'll be talking all things mystical creatures and swashbuckling tales throughout this series. If you have not caught up to the chapters being discussed today, I urge you to hit the pause button to read to catch up. I will be here when you get back. I'll be avoiding spoilers throughout the reading and encourage everyone to send me your thoughts and comments on the chapters and your favorite moments and creatures within. Alas, it is now time to set sail and begin our voyage across the seas. Alright, let's have a recap of Chapter 5, where we ended off previously. At the end of Chapter 5, Ilia bonded to Nicolin, the Rizzle Eldarin, and after completing his trial of worth, which was a trial worth of wit. Volke and Lyle were still determined to explore the Endless Mire to find the potentially bond with the other two mystical creatures. Let's dive into Chapters 6 through 10, summary. Alright, Chapter 6 begins with Volke and Lyle driving further into the mire when they stumble across a swamp spirit. Lyle ever so happily turns down the chance to bond with it, and Volke goes through the trial of worth and is rejected. The next mystical creature presents itself to bond, no questions asked, and it is a majestic Whiteheart. Something didn't set right with Volke and stops Lyle from bonding with it, so the Whiteheart did what any sensible thing would do in the face of rejection. It tried to kill Volke. Chapter 7 picks up with Volke and Lyle fighting for their lives with a shovel. Best choice of weaponry there. After Volke is on the verge of death, shadows fall and the swamp spirit emerges to protect Volke and bonds. There is one string attached, though. Volke has to help Luthier avenge his former Arcanist. Yay, Volke has bonded to a suit of armor, or more like a Knightmare with a K. He finds out the creatures were escaping a plague, but wasn't Volke all sliced up by the antlers of the Whiteheart? Not anymore, thanks to his magic going through his veins now. Chapter 8 begins with them trudging back into town, and as you would think, the townspeople will be cheering and delighted, but no, unfortunately not, since Lyle ran ahead to tell everybody that Volke stole his mystical creature. And if you thought Schoolmaster Timms had a hissy fit before about Volke breaking into the trial of worth for the Phoenixes, stand by to see a full-on tantrum after noticing the 7-pointed star that are on the foreheads of the two brand new Arcanists, and refuse to believe that they passed the trial of worth honorably thanks to Lyle. Now that Timms knows that Luthier is second bonded to Volke, there's not a chance for having Lyle bond to him. Guess we have to ship the riffraff out of the village and place a lifetime ban on them for Ruma. William tells them that they should head straight for the Frith Guild as they are an honorable Arcanist as soon as they get to Fortuna to apprentice with. Chapter 9 sets while on the boat sailing to Fortuna, which is a 2-day trip from Ruma. Atty is already showing magical flames thanks to her new bonded phoenix, and Ilia is teleporting fruit more so. Volke says, "Hold my beer," makes the shadows dance ever so slightly, because he gets hurt when he uses his magic. Well, dang! So much for bonding an already growing mystical creature. There are no shortcuts in magic, and Fantasia 2000 should have taught us that. In Chapter 10, we arrived into Fortuna, the port, and our heroes make their way to the guild hall to figure out what kind of new and exciting lives they want to live. Volke and Ilia are already decided on the Frith Guild, and Zaxis acts like he's too good for that guild. Yeah, right, Zaxis. You would fanboy over Master Arcanist Gregory Roma too. Volke presents his letter of recommendation from William and asks where the dotted line is to sign up for the guild. The guild is like, slow your roll. You have to convince the Master Arcanist to take you on. Best way to prove that? Find a moth. Yep, a moth. But not just any moth, but a star moth. And we end this section as Volke, Ilia, and unfortunately Zaxis are about to start their challenge of finding a star moth and to try and impress the master. All right, now we're going to do our deep dive into chapter 6, where Volke and Lyle are pressing on into the Endless Mires. The first thing I want to note is that Volke and Lyle both agree to keep secrets, I guess, if you want to call it that, or just keep truth out of the conversation as far as Volke's lineage and Lyle's age, because mystical creatures don't want to bond with anybody that's too young, because the only way for mystical creatures to grow is to grow with their Arcanists. And the Eldarin, they want to make sure they're picking a mature person, so that way they can grow into a proper Eldarin, because the mystical creatures essentially take on some personalities from their Arcanists. They're bonded to the soul. So when they run into the swamp spirit and Lyle is basically, I'm too good for this, I'll turn my nose up to it. Volke actually tries to talk with the spirit, and the swamp spirit, and we don't know is Luther or a Knightmare yet. But Volke decides to tell the truth. He says, "Hey, look, my father was a murderer, and my mother was convicted. I was stealing. So, would you have a problem with that?" And surprisingly, he doesn't care. He's actually, doesn't care about how the lineage. He doesn't believe that the sins of the father are that of the son and all that good stuff. So, but Luther did want to know why he wanted a bond, and ultimately Volke was saying, I want to bond because I want to prove everybody that I'm not this person that they think I am, or they say I am. And the swamp spirit, or Luther, just basically is like, well, I don't want to bond with somebody that just wants power for the sake of power. But what's that creepy? What's this? Somebody wants power? No, there's a creepy voice coming out of this white heart, and a white heart is a white deer or white stag with golden antlers that is known for invisibility. And it's just, hey, it's all set to bond. I mean, you just want power, man. That's all good. I want power too. That's all it's saying. And don't worry about the maniacal laughing or the really creepy dead fish eyes, or them jiggling around, motion, like they shouldn't be, or moving around like they shouldn't be. That's not bothersome at all. But it's starting to sound kind of convincing to Volke. But again, the way its movements are, the way its eyes are looking, Volke's like, this may not be good. So Volke says, I'm good. I don't want this. But Lyle's being so convinced that he needs to bond with this mystical creature, and this is a well-known mystical creature that Lyle doesn't care. He wants to bond with it. We don't know at this point in time about the arcane plague. We've heard it mentioned maybe once or twice to this point. We kind of have an understanding of that's probably why they're here. But again, there's not too much mention of it prior to. Volke does basically prevent Lyle from bonding with this white heart, which is a good thing, as it is infected with the arcane plague, and it does affect anything magical. So, and this white heart has the ability to read minds, which I don't believe is normal with white hearts to begin with, or many other mystical creatures. Maybe this is because of the arcane plague and how it's driven it mad and is consumed power somehow. But again, this is not a normal reaction for these mystical creatures. So chapter 7 begins pretty much right where Lyle is pushed away to be, to not bond with the mystical creature, and Volke pushes him down and tries to keep him away from this Whiteheart. And basically, he's trying to protect him. I mean, out of everything that Lyle has and could have done to insult, berate, and basically tell Volke how he is a lesser person than Lyle because of his parentage, Volke does the honorable thing. He's putting himself in front of Lyle and between Lyle and the Whiteheart to keep from being killed. And this Whiteheart is going after Volke with his antlers and just gouging him out and hurting, cutting into him. He gets into his hip, and the whole while they're trying to trudge back through this mire. They're trying to see this creature because it's able to go invisible. And Volke's just got a shovel. Like he's just trying to do anything to keep him and to keep Lyle alive. He does end up using some intelligence and says, "Hey, look, if you want to bond with me, you have to present me a trial of worth so that I can prove myself." And the Whiteheart, its decision is, I'm gonna kick you in the chest and see if you live. That's your trial of worth. And after Volke gets kicked in the chest, he ends up waking up. He's not dead, but he's dang near close. And the Whiteheart actually tries to bond with Volke, but we're told that in order to bond, both the mystical creature and the Arcanist have to be in agreement, have to give consent. And Volke basically says, "No, I'm not gonna bond with you. You go ahead and kill me." And then all of a sudden, everything went dark, and something just completely destroys the Whiteheart. And as Volke is bleeding out into the mire, he basically hears a voice that says, "Hey, I'll save you, and we can bond. However, you have to do one thing. You have to avenge my previous Arcanist and kill whoever it is that killed him." And that's where chapter 7 ends. Moving into chapter 8, as if we needed any more reason to dislike this town or the schoolmaster. Nobody celebrates this. Arcanists are observed and viewed as the absolute highest level of, I guess, on the social hierarchy. It doesn't matter what kind of Arcanist you are. Even the weakest Arcanist is viewed as, superior, and not necessarily like in an evil or maniacal way, but they have a higher standard to live by, and to they are expected to protect everybody else that isn't with magic. And again, these people that are lining the streets that assumed that Volke was dead because Lyle ran off the second he was able to and try to get help for Ilia. All these people are just watching them walk back like nothing happened, and maybe it's because they heard the story and that Lyle told, and they don't want anything to do or associate with Volke because of that. Maybe it's because they just don't want anything to associate with Volke in general because of his background, and it's kind of disheartening for Volke, as he's gone through so much, even in these first few chapters. Like, look at other series, other books, other things, and you have some that are just, the hero is almost incapable of doing wrong, and they do go through some struggle, but it's not nearly anything like Volke has gone through, not being wanted by anybody, having to take an apprentice that would literally never allow him to leave, that would never allow him to bond with anything else per the island's traditions, per Ruma's traditions. And he does what he's supposed. He does the amazing thing of, I'm gonna go bond with a phoenix. I don't care what tradition says. I'm going to make my own path. I'm going to not allow them to let me, to keep me here and let me down. I'm going to do it in a respectful way and in the proper way. But again, just because he didn't have the ability to pay for these classes, and because the only person that was willing to apprentice him or take him in even was a gravedigger or gravekeeper, and that position was viewed as it wasn't even supposed to be allowed to partake in the ceremony, the trial of war ceremony for the phoenix. So again, him and Ilia are walking back, and nobody's celebrating, nobody's clapping, nobody's even caring that they're still alive. Like that's just, I feel bad for him, and I sympathize with him for that, because no matter what, even if he just turned an adult, no matter what, he's still a human being at the end of the day. And I really truly wonder what it was that Volke himself did to cause this, because he was, it was said that he spent every evening studying the staircase or the pillars. He spent every evening studying and reading books on other arcanists, other famous arcanists, learning to be a good person in his best way possible, without having a structured teacher, without having somebody telling him how to do things and giving the etiquette classes and this, that, and the other. But here he is. He's made it. He's became an arcanist. Him and Ilia both. So once they finally get back to Gravekeeper Williams' cottage, Schoolmaster Times is there, and he's just throwing a tantrum. That's the best way to explain it. Like, reading it, I was just sitting there thinking, like, this is what my 3-year-old would do. Like, this is exactly what my 3-year-old would do. It would just start screaming and hollering and stomping around. And he's described as, or he's basically saying that Volke stole Luther from Lyle, and granted, Lyle didn't have any help in this matter, because Lyle came back and said, hey, Volke prevented me from bonding with a mystical creature, thinking that, Volke was dead and long gone, so it wouldn't matter that he was still alive. Whether or not that's, even if that were true, if Volke were to have passed, it still wouldn't matter. He's already got enough stuff going on to not add that one more little thing. So Volke contradicts Lyle's retelling of what happened, and Times was about to storm out and basically say, no, I'm gonna have to press this to the Wren family, and we'll decide what we're gonna do with him, and we're gonna possibly drown him for this, for basically what it would happen if somebody tried to steal a phoenix. And Luther said, absolutely not. Luther actually confirmed the story from Volke, and explained that the Whiteheart was a insane, plague-ridden Whiteheart. And that definitely seems to have changed, because it changed Schoolmaster Times' decision, because Schoolmaster Times does actually say, okay, well, that changes it. We're going to get them off this island. They're leaving tomorrow with Zaxis and Atty. I'll take care of the arrangements. They cannot stay here anymore. They are not allowed back here. And rightfully so. Volke is quite nervous about leaving. This is the only place that he's known for his entire life. And as excited as he was about leaving and getting off of the Isle of Ruma, there's still that nervousness in his gut, knowing that not everything is going to be easy, and he's going to have a lot to learn of the outside world. I have to admit, the where I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania was the middle of absolutely nowhere. There was at least a quarter of a mile between my neighbor's house and my parents' house. I basically had no choice in not having a car in order to get to work or to get to school or go to a friend's house, because I didn't have anybody growing up in around my age group where I was living. And I remember whenever I traveled to the larger cities outside of the county, yeah, it was a really huge deal. And then I decided to join the Marine Corps in 2012, and I remember getting out to basically San Diego, California, when later part of 2012, and just thinking, oh my gosh, like they have taxis, they have this, they have that. This is amazing. You can order food at after 10 o'clock at night and have it delivered, and that's just absolutely normal. Like, so again, I completely understand the nerves of going from a small town, small place to somewhere you couldn't even have dreamed of, and because that's essentially what I went through when I moved out to San Diego. So again, Volk was nervous, but at the end of the day, he was excited. He was excited to be leaving and to be able to be exploring the rest of the world with Luther and trying to discover who Luther's his Arcanist murderer was, so that way he could fulfill his part of it. Luther was fairly adamant of, hey, look, you got to learn how to use your magic first. Like we can't just go rushing in and try to take that person out, because his previous Arcanist was a fairly strong one himself. So as they're leaving, Zaxis and Atty are in a carriage being drawn to the port. They had all their stuff, their belongings already loaded up on the ship, ready to go, and Volke and Ilia are walking behind them, and the crowd's cheering. The crowds are excited to see Zaxis and Atty leave, and unfortunately, the Volke recognizes that the screaming and the cheering and the waves and all that isn't for him or for Ilia, unfortunately, and it would have been nice to have a little bit better of a send-off for them, even though, because again, they're still Arcanists. At the end of the day, they are Arcanists. So, but Volk doesn't make a big deal about it. He says his piece to William as he's leaving. William makes sure that he said goodbye to him and Ilia, and William actually gives Volke and Ilia letters of recommendation for the Frith Guild, and because he knew the guildmaster Eventide, so he told Volke and Ilia to go find the Frith Guild and to turn in these letters of recommendation, and they should be all set to go to be able to join that guild. Just as Volke is about to get on the ship, Lyle actually does something surprising, and he runs forward and he's trying to apologize to Volke, and he gives Volke a small wooden box with some coins in it and a letter of apology, and basically saying that he feels terrible for what he did, as far as what he said about how Volke stole the White Heart from him, or prevented the White Heart from bonding with him, and he knows in his heart of hearts that wasn't right. Which it's a nice thing to see that Lyle is making effort to change a little bit from the crazy schoolboy that is lashing out because his parents aren't as much as they say aren't focused on him, and they don't pay as much attention to him because of his older brother Zaxis. Lyle won't be able to bond with a Phoenix the next time that this happens in a decade, because Lyle will be too old, and he was too young to be able to bond with a Phoenix this time. So he's kind of stuck in the same place as realistically as Volke was. Maybe not disliked as strongly or anything like that, but again, Lyle, he kind of shows that he's kind of stuck just like Volk was, and he's adamant about bonding too, so he could leave the Isle, because again, it's got a total of 3 carriages. I believe they stay in the city or the town, on the whole Isle of Ruma. All right, moving into chapter 9. Chapter 9, they are actually on the ship on their way to Fortuna, which is the port closest to them. It's still about a 2-day sail or 2-day cruise, I guess, if you want to call it that. May not have my naval naval terms correct. However, so they are sailing or cruising to Fortuna, and while they're on the ship, Zaxis stays pretty much hidden as far as I can see. Atty is on deck. She's practicing her magic. She's already starting to learn how to wield her fire. And Ilia was learning to use her teleportation as well. The Atty was demonstrating to Ilia, and the crew happened to be hanging around and seeing, and they were pretty excited to see that, as they are not Arcanists themselves. So when they do see an Arcanist and they do get to see somebody wielding their magic, it's a special moment to them. It's a big thing. So Atty makes fire in an arc, like a rainbow, and then Ilia tries to see what she can do, and she's already practiced a little bit, so she takes a piece of fruit and is able to teleport it a few inches away. And a few inches may not be much right now, but it's still something as a brand new person to magic and to these powers. Volke tries to use his magic and is quick to learn that his magic is going to be a lot more difficult for him to learn how to use. And this is mainly because he's been second bonded with Luther, and that any Arcanist that is second bonded is going to always have difficulty with their magic, their powers, it being more difficult for them to control them and to use them because of their second bond. Because again, these Eldarin, or these mystical creatures, they use part of the Arcanist soul, so they become more like their Arcanist and more personality like their Arcanist, and now they have to relearn those personalities with the new Arcanist. So it's going to take some time. It's going to take some pain and some trouble. So we'll see how Volke handles that. Volke does talk to Luther about the previous Arcanist, Matthias Weaversong. So Volke recognizes Matthias's name as a very famous Arcanist himself, and Luthier is saying basically like, look, this has been, a lot of it's been exaggerated, so the key points are correct, but a lot of the things that we're taking credit for, or a lot of the things that have been basically, what's the most well known for is definitely a little bit the exaggerated realm. So not everything is to be believed about these stories, but some of it is based off truth. So they all get into port, and Zaxis basically starts laying into Volke about how quaint Volke is, how Volke's never been outside of the Isle of Ruma. And this is where we start to see Atty kind of coming out of her shell and cut Zaxis off, and basically is, hey, look, this is where the guild hall is going to be. We need to head there. That's how we're going to find our guild and apply for those guilds. She does a really good job as far as buffering Zaxis from Volke, and I can think that there's a clear sign that Atty may like Volke. Volke likes Atty back, it's one of those gonna have to see where it blossoms. Again, for those that have not read the full series, unfortunately, we're gonna give any kind of spoilers or try to avoid spoilers. So that is something that you're gonna have to find out when we get there. A lot of the citizens are super crazy, going nuts right now because everybody just found out that Gregory Ruma, the Master Arcanist, is on his way into Fortuna itself, and Volke is going straight fanboy crazy, and I don't blame the guy at all. This is the guy he's been idolizing for the last 10 years. Been the epitome of what an Arcanist should be, as far as how he acts, as far as how he conducts himself, as far as his values, and making sure to put others before him. So, and if they named the island after Ruma, how old is this guy? Like really, how old is he? I know one of the things that are explained is Arcanists live for a very, very long time. They basically, because of their bond with these mystical creatures, it extends their lifespan, and far greater than an average human being. And I don't think we're ever explicitly told how long they can live for, but again, how old is this guy? So at the end of chapter 9, we're at the chapter 9 there. Beginning of chapter 10, they all four of them end up making their way to the guild halls, and they walk in, and there's about 10 different guilds that are currently in there that could hold up a lot more, but they do speak with the journeyman that's at the counter for the Frith Guild, and Volke and Ilia hand them their paperwork, so that way they can, their letter of recommendation. And they ask about the different guilds, and Volke is dead set on the Frith Guild. There's no other guild that he could possibly want to join. And same with Atty. Same with Ilia. Ilia is the exact same way. There's no other place that she wants to talk to. And again, this is where Zaxis kind of starts getting on him about, oh, well, you just want to go in the Frith Guild because of Ruma, and you're not even going to bother to look at other guilds. And this is one of those situations where you just want to look at Zaxis and tell him to shut up. I can't tell you how many different occasions that I've reading these series a couple times, how many times I've just sat there and just shut up. Leave him alone. He can fanboy a little bit, okay? Zaxis does ask about what guild has any other Phoenix Arcanists, and we know that there are some because 10 years ago there was the Trial of Worth, and there were some Phoenix Arcanists that left the Isle of Ruma. The journeyman that is representing the Frith Guild does disappoint and looks disappointed because unfortunately there are no other Phoenix Arcanists out there right now. They unfortunately, the last two that came across have died. They did go to the Frith Guild though. Looking at the history, I got curious myself about guilds and where did they come from, kind of some history behind it, and did a little bit of digging myself, and it looks like guilds can be traced back past the medieval times, and it looks like they were started to give people a place to learn and a place to work. Kind of reminds me of trade jobs. And that's what these mainly were used for, were for crafts and for merchant. These guilds did have some good positive things behind them, good reasons to be there, as far as they help set a standard for quality for the work, or for the mercantile, or the merchandise. There we go, the proper word. The merchandise of the whatever is being traded or sold. They helped provide for some of the families with less fortunate less fortunate guild members. They would help those family members that their spouses may have passed away from the guild. I was reading an article about the Black Death and how guilds really were what kept families together and to keep them get through the hardships of the Black Death. On the other hand, guilds were also used in prominent places of local government, so they were influencing prices and legislation, and guilds used this as a way to monopolize their trades or to monopolize on the merchants or the merchandise, setting prices. The work was slow and times were difficult, then they charged more if work was good and there's abundance and people weren't buying as much, then prices were better. As far as one thing that I look back at after rereading these books, looking back and trying to figure out what guild that I would like to have gone into, at least with a couple that are mentioned throughout the series. And it's hard to say, mainly because you have to start with which mystical creature you'd like to have, because some of these mystical creatures, depending on what depending on what you bond to, may or may not allow you to go into a specific guild. You're not going to be able to go into a guild if you're a gargoyle arcanist and you're trying to get into the healers guild. They really can't do much for healing. They can repair rocks or earth, but not really going to do anything for healing people. So they obviously have to have powers that align towards what the guild is, and the Frith Guild is aligned towards essentially helping anybody that needs it. And the reason why they're actually even in Fortuna at this point in time is because the rumors or stories of the plague are traveling to the north, and they're trying to get on it and actually work towards getting ahead of it. So Volke is kind of going in there saying, all right, cool, hey, Frith Guild, I want to be in your guild, sign me up, where's the dotted line? And the journeyman's like, whoa, slow down. You actually have to complete a different trial of worth. And Volke was like, what the hell? Like, everything to do with magic is going to have a trial of worth? Is that just how it's going to be? So they get the information that they need from the journeyman that's working for the Frith Guild, as far as to where to be, when to be, all that good fun stuff. They actually don't have to show up until closer to sunset, as they're going to have to be looking for star moths. And as they're all walking out of the guild hall, Atty actually shows Volke a pretty significant sign of respect and equality by bowing her head. And Volke actually has an inner monologue, dialogue about, like, oh my gosh, did she just show me equality? Did she show me respect by doing that? This is probably the first time in his life that he's been shown any kind of respect outside of William or Ilia. So with the box that Lyle gave Volke, Lyle gave Volke some money and a letter. Thanks to that money, Volke and Ilia were actually able to go and purchase clothes that fit, clothes that were meant for them, and in the style and shape and fit and everything that they want, not just what's available. So this is their first sign of being an adult, of being able to do their own thing, spend their own money. They get a room in an inn, and they start to get themselves ready to go to this challenge. And they head out to the field where they're supposed to meet up for their Star Moth challenge. And what could be so hard about finding a Star Moth? Well, we're going to discuss that in the next episode, in chapter 11. So now we're going to move on to our bestiary section. I'm going to just go over the different mystical creatures that are discussed in this chapter. outside of the Rizzle, and which is Nicholin, and outside of the Phoenixes. So we're going to start with the Knightmares. And since this is the main mystical creature of the series, this mystical creature is basically a suit of armor that is empty inside, that is sentient, and has a very strong sense of justice. And further on, I'll discuss how the Knightmares are come into creation. And again, this is going to be one of those things that are going to be... Well, I'll probably have an entire episode just on different mystical creatures to give them the due diligence they deserve. We also had Whiteheart in there. That was the infected by the plague Whiteheart. The Journeyman had an Elgato Toad. There was an Arcanist at the field with a Pixie. And there's also an Arcanist with a Cockatrice and a Yeti. And in the next section, I'll go over a little bit more on the Elgato Toad, the Pixie, the Cockatrice, and the Yeti, as they're more prevalent in the next chapters. And we'll go a little bit in a deeper dive on those particular creatures. If you want to give me a comment going over specific ones, or you let me know what your favorite mystical creatures are and what guild you'd like to show, and please leave a comment down below, and also let me know how we're doing here. I'm also going to go over the next 3 pillar steps that are discussed up to this point. There are a few, 2 or 3 of them that are not specified as to which step they are, so I'm going to keep those at the bottom, and I'm going to keep track of which ones we've gone over already. So step 6 is tenacity. Without it, we fail at life's most important tasks. Step 13 is tranquility. Without it, we cannot control our rage. And step 15 is optimism. Without it, we lose ourselves to misery. I want to thank you all for listening, and you can, again, places you can find me is on Podbean. I have Google Podcasts up, and I have a Facebook page, Frith Guild Podcast. If you want to join me on there, we can discuss further things as well. I have my email on there if you'd like to send me an email, and my email is frithguildpod@gmail.com. And again, please leave a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. And we'll talk to you guys next week.